Ceron appeared beneath a tree in Varren Park on a cold, dark night. The sky was devoid of stars, and the wind howled, moving her hair in every direction. She stood still, waiting for the brief disorientation to pass, for her body to fall back into its familiar rhythm. It took longer than usual. She shifted her weight to steady herself, slightly irritated. She looked at her watch. 22:01. Her attention shifted to the tree in front of her, and it didn't take long before she started feeling warm and fuzzy inside, despite the chilly weather. Smiling, her fingers gently grazed the words that were engraved on it and encircled within a heart shape. Ceron is 18 years today. Despite everything Varren represented, loss, guilt, pain, this spot always offered her a welcome warmth, a pocket of peace. It was the last place she, her mother, and her father had ever been happy together.
When it is my time to die, I would make sure I die right at this spot,
she thought to herself. Tonight was the eve of her 24th birthday. She hated her birthday. It was a constant reminder of things she'd much rather forget. She was supposed to be in her apartment, mentally preparing herself for the emotional torture she would experience the next day. Because no matter how she tried to fill it with distractions, work, friends, noise, grief always triumphed. By afternoon, she would have broken down in tears, weeping from the deepest part of her soul, drowning in memories so heavy that she would have gratefully welcomed death as a substitute for the pain. It happened every year, and she knew this year would be no different. But tonight, she was too restless to stay in her apartment. She felt drawn to Varren and decided to teleport there. Ideally, she would have needed to take a 1-hour flight for this trip, but was too impatient for that. So, she chose the more convenient option, teleportation, paid for it with 1-year life currency, and in a matter of seconds was in the exact spot she had visualized, under the tree with her name carved on it. After a long moment, she hesitantly decided to visit the house she grew up in. She stopped thinking of it as home 5 years ago. A home held life. This place now held ghosts. The walk there should have taken 5 minutes, but ended up taking nearly 15. With each step, Ceron's body felt heavier, as though it were resisting the approach, reluctant to be confronted by the house waiting ahead. Her parents had been gone for 5 years, and she hadn't returned there once since the burial. She wasn't proud of that, but grief rarely allows grace. She was terrified of the house, terrified of the memories that lived in its walls, terrified of being reminded that she once had a beautiful life that had disappeared, all thanks to her. When she arrived, the sight of it was like a slap in the face. She felt a rush of emotions, each one barely settling before another one came rolling in. Sadness, grief, longing, guilt, and, surprisingly, although barely prominent in the emotional cocktail that was her mind, a small hint of happiness. This house wasn't just a monument of loss. It had been a real home once, full of warmth, laughter, the sound of pages turning, the smell of her mother's cooking, her father's heavy footsteps on the stairs. It held the version of her life that she would never get back. She stood in silence for a long time, waiting for her breathing to settle, took a deep breath and walked towards the door. Only 3 fingerprints were programmed into the system to open the door. Her father's, her mother's, and hers. As hers was being scanned, she remembered with a smile the day her father added hers to the system.
"You're wearing big girl pants now,"
he had teased. She had been 4, still tiny, but he had called it a milestone, and she had been proud beyond measure. The door unlocked with a familiar click. As she stepped inside, the lights hummed on, and she immediately choked on the stale, thick, dusty air. She turned on the ventilation system and stepped out to get some fresh air. After a short while, she walked back into the house, closed the door behind her, and scanned the large living room. Picture frames hung exactly where they had 5 years ago. The furniture sat in the same positions. Everything was in its place, save for her mum's mug in the middle of the living room. "Best mum ever" was written on it. Ceron had gifted it to her on Mother's Day. Her throat tightened. The large space began to feel overwhelming. So unprepared to take it all in, she decided to walk up the staircase to her parents' study. It was a much smaller space and her least favourite place in the entire house. She would feel less overwhelmed in there. The study was still a bit stuffy when she got there, so she opened the windows to allow some fresh air into the space, while the ventilation system continued to do its thing. The cold night air washed over her face, calming the shaking in her hands. Ceron looked around the study, which she had nicknamed the Blue Room, because almost everything was blue. The ceiling, the walls, the bookshelves lined with books her parents spent their lives reading, and the talking clock, another name she had invented. It was the only clock in the house programmed to announce the time whenever it struck the hour. She had hated this room growing up, because whenever her parents went in there, it meant they were busy and unavailable to be with her.
"The time is 2300 hours,"
announced the clock. Ceron shook her head. To her, it was still such an unnecessary feature. She proceeded to sit on her mother's chair. A photograph lay on it, her parents with their arms around her, all three of them smiling. She was about 16 years old in the photo. Her smile was so wide that it drew attention to the black mole on the top of her lip. She looked at the picture with sadness and longing. Her parents had died on the day she turned 18. Turning 18 in Aluit was monumental. It was the year Aluitans were gifted the abilities to teleport and recall memories. An 18-year-old was considered responsible enough to use these gifts wisely, if at all, because they came at a cost. 1 year was deducted from a person's lifespan for a teleportation, and 2 months was deducted for a memory recall. One could literally spend time, and it was calculated in life currencies. Each bloodline in Aluit had a predestined lifespan assigned to it. The longest ever known was 185 years, while the shortest was 30 years and 3 months. Children inherited their mother's bloodlines and the corresponding predestined lifespans. And while nothing could be done to increase a person's predestined lifespan, as it was sealed from birth, 2 things could be done to shorten or terminate it: spending life currencies through teleportation and memory recall, or a fatal injury, respectively. Ceron's parents had died by the latter. She remembered that day like it was yesterday. On her 18th birthday, she had insisted on going to Varin Park to celebrate her new superpowers. Her parents weren't too fond of the park, but they had obliged her. The park had been bright that day. They had unpacked the lunch her mum made, eaten, taken pictures, and sung off-key songs that made them laugh until their stomachs hurt. A little while later, her dad decided to carve out the words, "Ceron is 18 years today," on the tree they sat beneath to commemorate the occasion. Ceron was thrilled. When he was done, her mum thought that it was missing something and carved a heart around the words. After she finished, they all agreed that it was perfect. As they sat back, her mother mentioned, almost absent-mindedly, that there were a few things at home they still needed to sort through later. Papers, mostly. Ceron barely listened. Her parents were always organising something. Then they went on to talk about when they turned 18 themselves. They were one of those ones that did not celebrate their new abilities. They shared the same philosophy. Time was precious, and nothing should ever be so important to make anyone willingly want to shorten or terminate their lives. They considered themselves extremely lucky to have inherited longer lifespans from their own mothers. Her mum was predestined to live till 134 years, while her dad was predestined to live till 108 years. And they looked forward to a long old age, never making use of any of their abilities. Karen was in the middle of telling her parents how boring they were when chaos erupted. Gunshots erupted, bullets coming without rhythm or warning. It was such a stark contrast to the serenity that existed seconds ago. In the blink of an eye, the entire park was filled with a manic crowd, everyone running in different directions, screaming, not entirely sure what was happening. Her father shouted for them to run toward the park's entrance. They ran, hearts pounding, bodies surging forward, weaving through the crowd with no thought beyond staying alive. People fell around them. Pain and terror rang out on all sides. Then Karen stopped. Her parents were suddenly on the ground, motionless. Both had been hit in the chest, directly through the heart. Fatal injuries.